Seems I'm running out of night time to make these rather crepuscular videos as we approach spring. So I might have to make them in the middle of the night, or sooner rather than later that'll be the case. As you can see behind me, um, there is more daylight now than usual. But anyway, I've been thinking about this for a while, this video. So it starts off as favourite female characters in literature, and then it went to female characters I love. And then I sort of thought I'd narrow it even down further to female characters that I felt that on some level I'd fallen slightly in love with them. And there's really only ever been three in contention, which I'll talk about in a second, but because I thought I'd go with honourable mentions. Helen of Troy is one. There is obviously something so extraordinarily compelling about her in the Iliad that one cannot help feeling at least somewhat attracted to her, compelled by her in a way that is difficult to articulate. She's also obviously quite high maintenance and has no moral anchor. And then there are two Shakespearean characters, or two Shakespeare characters that I'm very fond of: Beatrice from Much Ado About Nothing, and Rosalind from As You Like It. They're so kind of full of life and wit and intelligence, and that becomes in great performances a kind of becomes a kind of erotic combination, I think. So they're the honourable mentions. Now, who of the three shall I begin with? Well, if we go from earliest to latest, well, one's late 19th century, and that is the extraordinarily appealing Bathsheba Everdeen from Far From the Madding Crowd, the central character of the Happy Hardy novel. What's wonderful about her, and I think missing in his other great female characters, is that she is not a victim to the fates. It's not an inexorable pull towards some awful end because what man cannot avoid their fate. She is in control of her life to me, and this is what I think makes her very special, to the same extent we are. She has obviously she's obviously a very beautiful woman, very lively, willful, clever, energetic. But she makes mistakes. She's a victim of where her heart pulls her, but she's also smart enough to kind of understand that at the same time, and run her life on a farm at the same time. It's I just found her. I mean, to be honest, by the time I finished Far From the Madding Crowd, my feelings towards Bathsheba were equivalent to the strongest feelings I think I felt for almost anybody in my life, a woman. I know this says more about me than it does about her, but that's probably the case with all literature. She felt so embodied to me that it was almost painful knowing that she didn't actually exist, that she wasn't embodied out there. And I think for about 2 or 3 months, my entire life was spent, rather you do when you fall in love with someone else, thinking they're present somehow, seeing them in other people. They become a kind of optic by which you make sense of things. But more than that, it was somehow she had grown out of the book to become a modern presence, a person who would fit perfectly into the 21st century. And with that, I think I was just, smitten, besotted. I think one of the interesting things about this is that who we meet in real life is obviously determined by our circumstances, and who we fall in love with is somewhat over-determined by who we are. But you put those two together, and we live in a fairly narrow world in terms of who we might meet and who we might fall in love with. And obviously, that's not the case with the books we choose. We have it is not quite as determined as our life. We have a broader range, and we can make stranger, more eccentric choices. And so, and we do. And I'm about to embark on a very large project for a publishing company, a piece of research, looking at the wish fulfillments of romance fiction. And it is partly that, isn't it? There is a wish fulfillment element in certain books that we read. And certainly that wasn't. I mean, often that is the reason people read. That is the act of picking up a book, the objective. That's not often the case with me. It becomes something that I'm rather sort of I kind of get ambushed by. And certainly that was the case with Bathsheba Everdeen, because I can't remember how many Hardy I'd read before that. Second, and I felt equally intoxicated by her, is Lily Bart from The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton. Lily Bart seems to me to be she's less vital than Bathsheba Everdeen, but she is no less full and rich, and her internal life is no less full and rich. She is much more poised. I mean, she's so poised, but she's vulnerable and poised, and she spends. The book actually is slightly more Hardy-esque in the sense that she's moving inexorably towards, and obviously if you haven't read it, do turn off here, towards a not particularly positive fate, that she can't really, because of society, avoid it, no matter how much she has to give. And I think, and this may seem superficial or trivial or whatever, but she's a young, beautiful, smart, clever woman, and she dies a virgin. And she dies a virgin because she can't have she can't have a sexual life without a husband, and she can't have a husband because she's not wealthy enough, or aristocratic enough or anything like that. So she's just this extraordinary female presence who, in any other world post the 1910s or whatever, would to a certain degree have more control or freedom over her sexual identity and her sexual life. And so she, in a sense, she's a kind of symbol for even when you have it all, in terms of your kind of existential assets. As a woman, society can, and we know this, I'm not saying anything profound, but there does seem something quite profound by her dying, never having had a sexual encounter. It seems somehow properly tragic in the human terms, given that she would have been, one imagines, a very appealing lover. And all the way through the book, I know that had I encountered Lily Bart in real life, I would have been in a terrible state for many years. I mean, not now, when I was younger. She would have pressed so many buttons for me. I'm setting aside Odette de Crecy because we've dealt with that in other videos, and actually she's too one-dimensional. But when I was in my 20s, certainly as erotic encounters go, I was certainly found her particularly compelling. But my third choice of women I kind of found myself in love with after finishing is Nedra. I'm not even sure she's got a second name from James Salter's Light Years. And this is a woman, once again, and we're in the 1970s now, so we're post-sexual revolution, but she's also married young. She's in her kind of early 20s with children. She's at home looking after the house while her husband's an architect in the city. But she's extraordinary. It seems to me that she's a woman for whom, in any other situation, she would have been a star. She has the grace and poise of someone like Grace Kelly, or Audrey Hepburn at their kind of peak. But there's something sexualized about her that is not present in Bathsheba or Lily Bart. There is something sort of it's not even predatory, but it is that she is aware of her sexual allure, and she's aware of the fact that she has immaculate taste, that she and lots of things, but because of the end of the sexual, it's the end of the sexual. It was written in 1975, and they're a bit younger, so we're kind of 10 years after the sexual revolution. She's frustrated because she's married. I mean, a few years later, she would not have been married at 23 and had children. But she's just got some kind of class about her that is not in any way contaminated by her sexuality, and that's a very extraordinary and devastating combination. You often read about, across the centuries, must be, but about, come across if you're reading biographies of certain things about certain women who are kind of hostesses in the most, highest levels of society, but also known to be extraordinary lovers, and there's something of that with Nedra. She's just so accomplished at nothing, and he says that in the book. She does everything, she does nothing. It's actually one of the lines from the book, and so her accomplishment, mixed with this sexual confidence that to a certain degree is also frustrated, makes her, dimensionalize her and embodies her. And whilst I think say I kind of fell in love with her is probably too strong. I was more I was sort of knocked over with a kind of what would the word be, a kind of I'm looking for something to slightly to work with lust, but I can't think of it. But it wasn't just pure lust. It was a kind of I don't know, can't think. And it was a kind of, can lust be elegant? Don't know, maybe. I imagine she would seduce with a certain elegance, and one's lust for her would require one doesn't dip into any kind of vulgarity, but that doesn't really wouldn't mean that what's the word? Doesn't mean the event would underdeliver, as it were. But anyway, I'm sorry I've rambled slightly, and I'm sure some people might find this rather annoying, if not offensive, and I apologise for that. But I'm going to go. I find Nedra deeply intoxicating. Lily Bart's poise and essentially tragic trajectory, deeply moving. But I think in the end, I actually was really genuinely a little bit in love with Bathsheba Everdeen. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.